Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 2, Episode 14. And let me just tell you guys, we have a lot to discuss. This was a jam-packed episode. I had no idea that we were getting 90 minutes, but Bravo decided to surprise us, and I was entertained from beginning, middle, and end. Now, let me just let you guys know something real quickly. I'm pretty much going in on everybody except for Meredith. Meredith is my favorite at this point. She can pretty much do no wrong. She has the most common sense out of everybody. And I'm like, the rest of y'all are two-faced, annoying, kissing up to Jen. Mary, you and I are going to talk because the ignorant stuff that flies out of your mouth, it is unacceptable. I'm going to just say it, but I feel like this needs to be Mary's last season. I said this before a few recaps ago, but it's becoming more and more apparent that she just does not fit in with this group. So, with all that being said, let's just jump right on into this recap because we don't have a minute to spare. We start this episode off with Meredith. Meredith is at home. We see this delicious spread. I said, now, ladies of the other franchises, particularly Potomac, I need you girls to watch because that is a proper spread when you're going to have a few girlfriends over. Because a lot of y'all have these little events or parties and you don't have not a piece of food for anybody to eat. And I'm getting tired of it. So season 7, tighten up. But anyhow, Meredith is having a little girls' night, and we see Jenny arrive first. So Meredith and Jenny are eating and talking, just catching up. And Meredith wants to know what's going on with your husband wanting to have another child. Jenny says, girl, you thought that was something? My husband wants a sister wife. So Meredith is like, wait, girl, what? Like, absolutely not. Meredith makes a joke that there is no way in hell that her husband Seth could ever bring in another woman because they would be fighting all day. I thought that we left this storyline 8 episodes ago. I had no idea that we were still discussing you and Dewey and this sister wife thing. I don't care what anybody says. I believe that niece on TikTok. I believe that this whole entire storyline is made up. I'm just not buying it. Jenny didn't seem like she was so pissed off when Dewey brought this up to her. I feel like they are both playing us because they want to stay on this show. Sadly, Jenny's very boring. She's not giving what the girl said she was supposed to have gave, in the words of Rolling Ray. So I'm like, Jenny girl, you're really boring me bringing this up yet again because we don't care. We're focusing on the whole Jen mess, Lisa mess with her being an instigator, Mary and these cult rumors. Like, we're not thinking about you and this fake storyline about having a sister wife and having more kids. Just saying. So now we see Lisa arrive and she is in a great mood. So she sits down, she's catching up with all of them, and Meredith brings her up to speed about what her and Jenny have been talking about. So now Jenny tells Lisa that Dewey wants a sister wife. Lisa's like, what? Really? Like, I cannot even imagine Dewey even asking you for another woman because he just seems like he is madly in love with you. And if John ever asked me for a sister wife, he wouldn't even have a first wife. Jenny, I'm going to tell Dewey that we're going to find you a brother husband since he wants a sister wife. So now we see the ladies just talking and laughing. Meredith is asking about their sex lives. Lisa says that hers is great. And then we find out that Jenny has never role played before. So now Lisa's like, Jenny, you've never dressed up for your husband before, like ever? I think that's the reason why he's suggesting a sister wife. I think that we can solve all of your problems. So now we see Lisa and Meredith take Jenny up to Meredith's bedroom, and they have dressed Jenny up in this sexy bustier, and they put a blonde wig on her. So they're like, girl, you need to go home and show your man that you're a different person. And I have to say, that blonde wig looked really cute on Jenny. I said, okay, sis, I see you. I was a bit shocked to hear that Jenny had never role played with her husband before, especially since they've been married for like 17, 18 years. I was like, really? But you know what? I'm not surprised. They both seem a little bit dull, so I mean, I wasn't too shocked hearing that. But I digress. We move on to the next scene, and we see Jen Shah in her borrowed Porsche, and she is driving to have lunch with Lisa Barlow. So she's on the phone with Heather on her way to lunch, and she's calling for some moral support and some advice on how to handle this whole thing. Heather's like, babe, all I have to say is good luck to you, God bless, and it should be okay. Then we see Jen in her confessional say that she's hurt because she thought that Lisa was a ride or die friend. Then she goes on to say how her and Lisa talked all the time. They talked for over 3.5 hours every single day. I'm like, Lisa had the time to be on the phone for that long with you every day? And sis, if you're this big time mogul with all these employees, then why are you on the phone just chatting and shooting the breeze with your friends for over 3 hours a day? Don't you have some work to do? I'm just saying. A mess. So now Jen and Lisa both arrive at the restaurant, and it's very awkward between them. Lisa's making small talk, and she's asking Jen how she's been. Jen says, as good as I can be. This entire ordeal has been really hard on me and my family. Then she goes on to say how it's especially tough because she's innocent. So now Lisa says, yeah, I mean, they have to prove that you're guilty, but I believe that you're innocent. So now Jen says, you know, on top of this being really awful for my family and myself, it's really shown me who my friends are. So Lisa obviously can sense the shade, and she says, you know, Jen, you've hurt me too, and my feelings were hurt, and that's the reason why I wasn't so quick to reach out to you when everything happened. So now Jen is visibly confused as to how Lisa's feelings could be hurt. So now Lisa says, well, I haven't seen you since my kid's party, and it's just been really tense. We see the flashback of when Jen was yelling at Lisa at her son's photo shoot, and Lisa was very hurt about that. So now Lisa continues by saying, Jen, I was a really good friend to you, and when you kept blowing up at me, that really hurt. Like that night, I couldn't even sleep. Like I was up, and it was really, really emotional for me. So now Jen is like, well, Lisa, I had no idea that your feelings were hurt. And then she goes on to say how what she's dealing with supersedes all of that. Now, Jen, let me stop you right there. You have this issue where you act like you can say and do whatever you want to people, and then when they ignore you and want nothing to do with you, then you're upset. That's just not how this works. You have a very nasty attitude. You have a very volatile temper. We saw the way you were treating your former assistants. All right, we saw you on candid camera. You're throwing things, you're cursing at people, calling them everything but a child of God. So you can't be too upset when people don't want anything to do with you because of how you've treated them in the past. And it seems like you have a very hard time apologizing to people or owning up to your behavior. So you already know that Jen is not apologizing. She tries to spin this, and she gives her sob story about how she's facing the lowest point of her life right now, and she needs to know that Lisa's there for her. Then she says that they've been super close for these past 9 months, and was it real? So now Lisa gets upset, and she says, of course it was real, Jen. I have been a very good friend to you, and I have had your back. And it's actually really unpopular in our group for me to be your friend. So now Lisa and Jen get into it. Jen is crying and she's yelling. She's letting Lisa know that nobody was there for her except for Heather, and how she needs people who are in her corner and who believe her. So let me just say, when it comes to Lisa and Jen, I feel like Jen played herself, because Lisa is nobody's friend. And like I said in my last recap, Lisa is a friend in the good times only. When it comes to you facing a tough time, she's going to give you that shout out to everybody, I have fun.
Oh! Shout out to everybody, I have fun.
I gotta be good.
Okay, that's not a true blue friend who's going to stick by your side when the going gets tough. She's just not that girl. And like I said earlier on in this season, Lisa and Jen are cut from the same cloth. They're not loyal to anybody but themselves. They're both very fair-weathered friends. So it's just so funny that Jen is just so heartbroken and so taken aback by the fact that Lisa has deserted her in her time of need. And Lisa, you continue to show your slip, because you prided yourself early on in this season as being Jen's ride or die. Did you not? The fact that you were siding with Jen over your good friend of 10 years, Meredith, that says a whole lot. So now for you to not pick up your phone when Jen calls you, like, miss me with you're a good friend and you needed some time. Just say that you're a phony, and when it comes time to sticking by somebody when they're going through it, you're nowhere to be found. It is what it is. Lisa, you don't have the capacity to be a good friend to anybody, like I've been saying. But again, y'all are two sides of the same coin, so it's really interesting seeing the both of y'all going back and forth about who's been a bad friend to who. Now we jump over to Heather. She's at home and her older brother Tyler is visiting her, and her brother lives in Switzerland. So we find out that Heather is the middle child of 6 children, and her brother were always super close. So we see Heather and Tyler go downstairs and they're playing some games, and Heather says, I got your letter. So we already know by the tone of Heather's voice that it's about to be a very emotional conversation. Come to find out that Tyler wrote Heather a letter, and in the letter he disclosed that he and his family are no longer Mormons. Heather's like, I just need to know, when did you decide this? Because the last time I saw you, you and your wife and your boys were still going to church. Like, y'all were still reading the doctrine. Like, when did this happen? He says right after Christmas time, he decided to look into it after knowing that she was no longer Mormon. So he says some stuff wasn't adding up. It wasn't making sense. The math just wasn't mathing. And he too was like, you know what, I'm out. So he goes on to say, just reading up on the prophet Joseph Smith, finding out that he had married a teenager, that didn't sit right with him. He was like, in the church, in the doctrine, it talks nothing of that. So that right there was a problem for me. Tyler goes on to say how he feels duped, he feels traumatized. Some days he's really happy to be free, and then other days he's just really angry and upset. And he's emotional and a bit upset because when he was reaching out to Heather about leaving the faith, she didn't answer his calls. So Heather apologizes. She's like, look, it wasn't about you. It was the fact that I was feeling conflicted and I didn't want my choices to affect you guys. And this also happened right around our niece Caroline hit me up saying that she too no longer believed. And then other friends and family told me that they also no longer wanted to be Mormon, and how what I said resonated with them. So now Heather's crying and she's like, I always wanted to be Mormon, but I just realized that I can't be myself and also be a good Mormon, and that's painful. So they're both super emotional, and Tyler is reassuring Heather that she did nothing wrong. He goes on to thank her that she pretty much saved his family. Now, let me just say, Heather is determined to take down the Mormon church brick by brick, and the way I am screaming, okay? I said sis is on a mission to take them all down. And it seems like it's working, because it seems like everybody and their mother is leaving the church. I mean, her niece, her brother, then you have her other friends who no longer want to be in the church. So I said, little by little, it's about to be a mass exodus of the Mormon church in Utah. And won't that be something? I definitely wonder if Heather is super hated around town, because for the people that still are Mormon, I wonder how they feel seeing Heather tearing them down. But I will say, although I find this to be fascinating, for season 3, I'm going to need Heather to find another storyline, because this is about to get old real quick. I mean, every single episode, it's all about Heather leaving the faith. And it's like, it's cool, but I want to see more on Heather's life than this. I just do. So now we move on to the next scene with Jen Shah and her family. They're at home and we see them praying, and we find out that it is the last day of Ramadan, and Ramadan is when they fast from sun up to sundown, and it is the most blessed month in the Islamic faith. And I thought it was really beautiful and really touching to see Coach Shah pray over his wife. Like, it was such a beautiful prayer, and it was a very sweet scene. So now they finish praying, Ramadan is over, and now it's time for all of them to eat. And that food looked absolutely amazing. Like, my mouth was watering. So we see Coach Shah and Jen go downstairs, and they have a brief discussion. Coach Shah lets Jen know that due to the situation that they are dealing with, they are going to need to downsize and downsize quickly. So while Coach Shah is telling her that they need to downsize and find a place with a lot cheaper rent, she goes on to say how their house has always been a hub for the family. And I said, girl, what are you talking about, a hub for the family? This house that you guys are in right now is a rental. The last home that you were in last season was a rental too. So please miss me with it's a hub for the family. Y'all just got there. They're going to be okay if you guys have to downsize. Like, you don't really have any real ties to this rental. You just don't. And you've been in there for what? Less than 6 months? So please spare me. It just felt like Jen still wants to hold on to this facade that they're these super rich people, when that's just not the case. Girl, we already know the truth. There's no sense lying about it now. At the end of the day, sis, you guys need every single dime. So I would not be worrying about, let's try to keep this big rental. Enough. The jig is up. The ruse is over. So now Jen gets choked up, and she says how she feels like if they downsize, it'll almost be like she's failed her father and her grandfather, because they both told her before they passed that she needed to look after and take care of her family. I said, again, take that responsibility off of your shoulders. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. It's not your responsibility to take care of every single person. It's just not. Then we see Jen say in her confessional that she just really feels upset because she actually employs the vast majority of her family, and how she spends upwards of $50,000 a month, I guess, for payroll. Now, when Jen said $50,000 a month, my mind went to the documentary that came out about her. In Jen's casting tape, she said that she spent $50,000 a month on her glam and her upkeep. So now to hear her say, well, I spend $50,000 a month trying to employ all my family, it's like, well, girl, which one is it? So now Jen is telling Coach Shah how the legal fees are upwards of $2 million, and she's freaking out. Coach Shah assures her that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much these legal fees are. We are going to get the money because we are facing a huge opponent. And that opponent is the federal government. And we're going to get this money by hook or by crook to make sure that you stay out of jail. It's nice to see Coach Shah reassure his wife and let her know that he's going to fight by any means necessary to keep her out of jail. But at the end of the day, the fact that she is dealing with the charges that she's dealing with, and these mounting legal fees. I mean, coming up with $2 million that they don't have, that's going to be a challenge. And on top of that, I remember seeing that somebody had created a GoFundMe for Jen for $2 million, and she only got $200. I said, this is a hot, raggedy mess. But the scene ends with Coach Shah and Jen embracing, and he's telling her it's going to be okay, and she's saying how much she loves him. Now we move on to the next scene with Lisa and Whitney. Lisa has invited Whitney out for some paddleboarding yoga, and she feels like she just wants things to be cool with her and Whitney. She says that every time they move 2 steps forward, Whitney takes them back 3 steps, and she's tired of it. I mean, Lisa, if you would stop being two-faced and stop being an instigator and stop trying to play the villain and the victim at the same damn time, I mean, you might actually get somewhere with Whitney. So for you to act like Whitney's the reason why you guys can't seem to get right, I'm like, no, sis, it's time to look in the mirror and take some accountability for yourself. You start mess, Whitney calls you out on it, you get defensive, and then that's why you guys can't stand each other. Because you're upset that she holds your feet to the fire. And I saw on Twitter that Andy and them are filming the reunion, I think sometime this week. And I already know the way everybody is about to tear Miss Lisa Barlow up, I am here for it. So now Lisa and Whitney finish the paddleboard yoga, and they start discussing everything that went down in Vail. Whitney addresses Lisa's two-faced behavior when they were on the trip. She says, at the end of the day, we were all talking about Mary, and then it just seemed like the next day, you did a total 180. So, of course, Lisa can never own up to anything, and she's making excuses and making no sense. She's like, look, I went to Mary's room, but I was asking questions for me, okay? I asked her to her face directly if she thought that she was God, and she told me no. So Whitney's like, okay, girl, but did you ask her about what Cameron was saying about her? Lisa says that she did, and how she brushed it off because people have always said stuff about her church. So now Whitney says, well, I just want to let you know that I spoke to Cameron myself. I got his number from your ex-friend Angie, and me and him were on the phone for over 3 hours. I don't know what Cameron told you, but he told me some crazy stuff that would blow your mind. He told me that Mary and Robert are predators. And so Lisa's like, girl, what? Like, what do you mean? So Whitney's like, I'm not really at liberty to say, but all I can say is that Mary and Robert like to scare people to get their way. So now we see the producer ask Whitney what she means by that. And Whitney says, again, I don't want to say it because I could be putting my whole family at risk. Now, Whitney, you're obviously not that scared because the fact that you even said that about them on national TV, like, girl, come on. You might as well just say whatever you want to say. Like, stop all this talking in code because you're already trying to insinuate and throw things out there about her and her church. You might as well go all the way with it. A lot of the ladies on the SLC cast, they don't want to stand 10 toes down in their messiness. So Lisa says, you know what? That's really interesting that you mentioned that because when I was talking to Mary, she said, anybody who messes with me and my church, they go to jail. Just like what happened to Jen. And when she said that, I was like, wow, Mary, that's a really big statement. And I was really kind of like shook when she said that. I'm nobody's Mary fan, but that was a reach for you to act like that was just the scariest thing that you've ever heard. Mary saying, you know, you mess with me and now you go to jail. I mean, she didn't put Jen in jail. Jen did that on her own. And to add to that, it's just very annoying seeing Whitney want to play Inspector Gadget when it comes to Mary, but now you want to be all mum's the word and Jen's BFF now. I mean, focus on Jen. And better yet, Whitney, focus on yourself. Focus on that failing skincare line. Focus on the fact that you took out $1 million line of credit without telling your husband. Focus on your husband and the charges that he's facing and the fact that y'all allegedly don't have any money. Focus on that bare house. You have too much time and energy to be fixated on Mary. And then the gag is you want to be Mary's friend at the same time that you're calling her a cult leader. Like, make it make sense. So now we move on to the big day of Jenny's faux luncheon. I have to say, Jenny did a great job. The location was awesome. She picked the International Peace Garden and the whole setup was just beautiful. The table was just set nicely. The floral arrangements, she did a great job. Jenny's excited. She hopes that all the ladies will have a good time. She says that she just wants the ladies to get to know her better, get to know her culture better, and how in the Vietnamese culture, when there's conflict, they sit down and have some food together and they talk it out. So now we see Meredith and Lisa show up first. And let me tell you something, while Lisa gets on my last nerves, Mama knows how to dress. That outfit was everything. I said, okay, sis, I see you. So Jenny, Lisa, and Meredith are talking, and we see Heather, Whitney, and Jen show up. Meredith is looking like I know that is not Jen Shah, because I told these ladies straight up, don't invite me if you're going to invite her. So Meredith turns to Jenny and she's like, I thought I told you don't invite me if you're going to invite Jen. So Jenny's kind of stuttering and stammering.
Tell her, boo-boo kitty.
So Meredith is really angry and she's like, look, I'm an adult, but I'm just not going to engage with Jen. Now, Meredith, while I love you to death, you already know how it works on reality TV shows. Production gets real annoyed when people don't want to film group scenes together. So it's going to be real hard for you to force everybody not to invite Jen. We already know how Bravo does. Unless there was a physical altercation, you pretty much have to film a group scene with everybody. It just is what it is. So it's all the ladies except for Mary, and they all go to the table and they're gonna get started and eat. So now Jenny breaks the ice. She thanks them all for coming, and they started off with some drinks. The drinks looked amazing. It was a mango with lime and a bird's eye chili as the garnish. And when I tell you, it looks so refreshing. It just looks so delicious. I was like, oh, I want that. Like, I should have been at this lunch. I feel like I would be so much fun if I were on Real Housewives, because the minute we would have a dinner or a lunch and they would try it, I would say, look, I'm not arguing with nan one of y'all till I finish my filet mignon and lobster mac and cheese and asparagus in peace. So stop it. Like, shut up, be quiet, finish your drink, and let me finish my food, and then you and I can have at it, all right? Imagine trying to really get into it with me, and I'm sitting there stuffing my face with tiramisu and a brownie, and you're like really trying to let me have it. Like, imagine. I think it would make for some good TV, but everybody else would be annoyed, like, oh my gosh, can she not hold production up? Like, I'm ready to go home, but Brooke wants to finish eating. It'd be a mess. And I'd be getting on everybody for not having proper food at their parties. A mess. I can see it now. But let me not get off on a tangent because you're not here for all of that, okay? So now we see the first course being brought out. It's a spring and summer roll, and they looked amazing. I think one of them was shrimp too, so I was really salivating. So now Mary finally arrives, and she's like just in time for the food. So now she's making small talk with everybody. She's being super nice to everybody. She says hello to Whitney and Heather. She gives Jen a big old hug. I said, okay, Mary. Now, Mary's also very two-faced as well, because she'll talk cash money shit about folks, and then be hugging and loving on them in the next breath. A mess. So Lisa compliments Mary's hair because Mary has a blonde wig on. And Mary's like, thank you, we'll talk later. It's a new wig. So now Lisa's like, oh my gosh, we had Jenny in a blonde wig the other night and she looked really good. They show Mary the pictures of Jenny with the blonde wig on. Mary goes on to compliment Jenny, and then she goes on to say that she loved Jenny's slanted eyes. So when I heard this, I damn near dropped the remote and I had to rewind that back up. And I said, wait, excuse me, pardon me. I know I didn't just hear that. I said, Mary, you are too damn old to be this ignorant. Too damn old to be this damn ignorant. In 2021, you were on national TV. I said, have you lost your mind? I know how everybody likes to act like Mary's just so funny and just so ditzy. And, it's just Mary. She doesn't mean anything by it. Like, y'all got to stop making excuses for her. It's not funny. It's not cute. It's not entertaining. I don't enjoy any of Mary's antics. She's ignorant. She needs to think before she speaks. Mary would be the first one hollering and complaining if one of these women said something racially insensitive to her. And she knows it. So for her to make such a terrible, ignorant statement like that, I said, you know what, Mary? You've got to be kidding me. And the fact that she didn't catch Jenny's facial expression, like, girl, did you really just say that? She already made that dumbass comment 2 episodes ago when they were in Vail. Now this, I'm like, Mary, you're going to be issuing yet another Notes app apology on Instagram come tomorrow. Honestly and truthfully, this needs to be Mary's last season. I'm tired of the antics. I'm tired of the socially awkwardness. I'm just tired of the stupidity that comes out of her mouth. I really am. She's too damn old. She's too damn grown not to know better. I'm sick of it. She also doesn't fit in this group. It is what it is. It's painful watching her in these group settings in the first place. But we see Jenny is really pissed off at Mary for making that really ignorant statement. And she goes on to say that if this weren't her event, she would have had Mary on the ground. Now I said, Miss Jenny, I understand that you're angry and rightfully so, but I think that Mary is good and crazy and she would have had you on the ground if you even touched her. I'm just saying, sis, like, you don't strike me as a fighter. So now we see Heather and Mary talk amongst themselves. Heather's like, I thought that things had left off pretty bad between us in Vail. And so Mary's like, look, girl, it's fine. I just want peace. I like you. Let's just toast it up. So now Heather and Mary toast, and Heather's like, you know what, Mary, I like you too. Heather says in her confessional that Mary, although she can be very harsh and she'll stab you in the back, she's also somebody who doesn't hold grudges and can move on. So Whitney says, look, when we were all together the last time, things were not good. It was super heated, super uncomfortable. So to see everybody act like we're all fine and everything is all good, it's just very fake to me. I was just like, Whitney, can you shut up? You know how to turn a nice moment and make it awkward. Everybody's trying to enjoy their filet mignon soup, and here you go, have to bring up the drama. Just shut up. So now Jenny acknowledges that yes, it is kind of awkward. Yes, it is kind of fake that nobody's addressing their problems, but she is trying to have a peaceful lunch. Mary interjects and says, are we really trying to re-hurt people? So now Jen interjects and says, you know what? Let's just talk about the elephant in the room. She goes on to say, listen, I had no idea that what happened to me was going to happen. I'm innocent. I know nothing about this. And by the way, I did not get arrested or booked like the media suggested. They put me in this room, asked me some questions, asked me if I knew some people. I have no idea who they are. Like, again, I'm innocent. So now Mary, in her awkward way, is asking a bunch of questions, and she's making things even more awkward. She's like, really, Jen? You really had no idea, like, what was going on for real? Like, is this a true story, Jen? I feel like you're pulling your leg. So Jen keeps reiterating that she's innocent. She had no idea why she was even being called into all of this, and how she had nothing to do with what they're saying. So now Jenny interjects and says, look, Jen, we were all talking about it. They were sending us info. So now Jen says, who was sending you info? Jenny says Whitney, and this is where everything goes left and all hell breaks loose. So Whitney's like, excuse me, I was not the only one texting you guys information. We were all talking about it. We were all exchanging articles and news clips, so let's not. So now everybody's talking at once except for Meredith. You could tell that Meredith was not amused by this entire thing. So anyhow, everybody's trying to declare their innocence, how they weren't talking about her. And so Jen is like, really? Like, I did not have to come to this lunch. I could have came for dessert. So now Mary says to Jen, Jen, I just want to let you know that I did not say anything bad about you in Vail. So they all look at Mary like, girl, are you really going to sit up here and lie? So now we see the footage of when Mary was talking about Jen when they were in Vail, and Mary was saying how Jen scammed the elderly and people who had no money, how she always knew that Jen was capable of doing something like this, how she was always afraid of Jen, and how she's never seen the good in Jen. So Jen says thank you to Mary, and now everybody is really pissed. Lisa says, Jen, everybody was talking about you, and if this were me, you guys would be talking about me as well. So then we see Lisa trying to lie about how her lawyers texted her. Whitney calls her out and says, no, sis, let's not. You called all 6 of your lawyers on the bus. They didn't call you. So now Mary continues to badger Jen about whether or not she's guilty or innocent. So now Lisa interjects and says, that's what due process is for. So Mary's like, girl, shut up. I was not talking to you. I'm talking to Jen. Like, let Jen speak. So Mary keeps asking Jen more questions. Lisa keeps interjecting, which gets Mary even angrier. And now Lisa and Mary get into it. So now Mary's like, Lisa, just shut up because you were talking about Jen badly. Lisa and Mary continue to go back and forth. Now Jenny's getting pissed off and she interrupts. She turns to Mary and tells Mary that Mary is full of it. She's like, girl, you're a liar, you're fake, you're phony because you were talking badly about Jen. So stop saying that you didn't say anything because you did. Then we see Jenny say in her confessional that Mary is full of crap and Mary needs to be like the woman of God and be honest. Mary was out and out lying, saying that she said nothing bad about Jen. We saw the footage. We watched that episode when they were in Vail, and Mary was saying a whole lot about Jen. So for her to lie and say she didn't say anything bad about Jen, it's like, girl, stop. So Jenny's yelling and cursing at Mary. Mary's like, all right, girl, like, watch your tone, watch your mouth, say what you have to say, but be respectful about it. So Jenny's like, Mary, don't tell me what to say. Don't tell me what to do. I'll say whatever I want to say. So now she calls Mary a liar, and Mary is really pissed. And Mary's like, you know what? I'm going to get out of here. I don't need this. So Jenny's like, girl, the door is open. You can go. Like, bye. So now she gets up to leave. She's pissed. And Meredith is like, girl, don't go. I'll walk with you. So while Meredith and Mary are away from the table just talking, we see that it's pure pandemonium at the table. Lisa's trying to clean it up to Jen, and she says that day when everything happened with the feds coming to Beauty Lab, everybody had a myriad of emotions, and she still has PTSD from it. So now Jen gets upset and says, well, how do you think I feel? So she starts crying and gets up to leave the table, and they're like, Jen, come back. So she walks off and she goes over to where Meredith and Mary are. And now it's just Mary and Jen talking to each other. And I caught that Freudian slip when Mary said to Jen, I pray to God every day that you're guilty. And then she said, no, I mean innocent. I said, girl, stop it. And you know good and damn well you are not praying for Jen. You probably sitting there with glee and happiness that this whole thing has befallen Jen in the first place. A mess. So Meredith is back at the table and she's chastising everybody. She's like, I'm not even Jen's friend, but I'm really sad for her because y'all all claim to be her friend, but you talk about her behind her back, but now you want to smile in her face and act like you guys like her. If you're going to be her friend, be her friend. If not, then just don't be her friend. Like, it's not that hard. So now Lisa gets upset at Meredith, and she's like, really, Meredith? So you're going to defend what Mary did? So now Meredith is like, I'm just telling the truth. None of you guys are acting like friends to Jen. It is what it is. And I have to say, Meredith is 100% right. They've all been hella two-faced, all of them. And come to think of it, I don't think that Heather is really that sincere in her friendship with Jen. I think that Heather just wants some brownie points and she wants to look like a good person being friends with a woman who's being accused of all these horrendous crimes. That's what I think it is. Because Heather still has that complex of when she was in the Mormon church and she needed that pat on the head that she was perfect and such a nice person. So that's the only reason why I feel like she really is rooting for Jen. So of course Lisa's angry that her best friend of 10 years called her out on her two-faced behavior in regards to Jen, and she starts yelling at Meredith. Then Lisa says in her confessional that it seems like Meredith can only defend Mary, but not her. I said, but Lisa, where were you to defend your friend Meredith when Jen was sitting up there tormenting her family? You were sitting there straddling the fence and playing both sides and trying to play devil's advocate. So Meredith is really pissed. She's like, you know what? I'm out of here. Jenny, I told you, don't invite me if you're going to invite Jen. I'm out. There's no peace in this lunch. I'm just tired. This woman has traumatized my family for almost 2 years, and y'all want to sit up here and coddle her and do all this stuff. Like, I'm just out. So as she's walking away, Lisa's like, Meredith, don't leave. Meredith, 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 don't leave. Don't leave. So Lisa is screaming in Meredith's face, and Meredith is like, girl, if you don't get out my face, all this screaming, then I know something. Like, shut up. And I was cracking up because Meredith was not here for it. I'll bet you guys money that when this reunion comes around, Lisa and Meredith are not going to be friends. I know they posted a cute little birthday post for each other on Instagram, but something tells me that their relationship is seriously strained. So now we see Lisa running after Meredith. She's telling Meredith how she wants Meredith to stay and how she'll be hurt if Meredith leaves. And then she says, Meredith, I just need you to stay for me, okay? Stay for me. Like, I just need you to stay for me, okay? So she's doing all that with the fake tears. I said, I have never seen women who cry and not one teardrop comes out of their eye. Like, teach me how to do that. Because I'm tired of ruining my lashes and ruining all my foundation and all my makeup. Because when I cry, I cry. Like, you think that Candace from Potomac can cry? Honey, I can outcry her. But I digress. So we see Meredith come back to the table. Lisa is relieved. Mary and Jen come back to the table. And now all the ladies apologize for making this about them. So Jen says, listen, I'm innocent, all this stuff. I didn't do anything. I understand that you guys might need some time to process it, but I am innocent. Heather says, we just want you to know, Jen, that you have a lot of people in your corner, even if it feels like the world has turned their backs on you. So now Mary says under her breath, I wouldn't say that. I said, Mary, if you would just learn just to not say everything that you think in the moment, that would be great. I said a mess. And then Jen says that she just needs people who are going to be there for her. And that's where the episode ends. Let me tell you something. This episode took a lot out of me. There was just so much going on. All the drama at that lunch. It was too much. I was glad that Meredith called them all out on their BS. Either you're going to believe Jen and be on her side, or just leave her alone. Like, just be real. If you don't believe Jen, if you don't want to be her friend, if it's too much for you, then just say that. But all of this back and forth, all this flip-flopping is getting tired. I don't think you guys understand that this reunion is probably going to be a top 3 reunion. I'm calling it now. There's so much going on so many different fronts. Pretty much everybody except for Meredith is going to be getting called out. I can't wait. I'm going to be there with my snacks and my champagne because we're really in for a treat. But y'all, this was a great episode. I enjoyed it. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Bye.